Start here. The voters have spoken in a high-stakes race. Let's go outnumbered overtime. I'm Harris Faulkner. The results are in from Virginia. Democrat Ralph Northam besting Republican Ed Gillespie in the closely watched race in which the Republican embraced the Trump playbook but kept the president himself at arm's length. The president tweeted this: Ed Gillespie worked hard but did not embrace me or what I stand for. Don't forget, Republicans won 4 out of 4 House seats, and with the economy doing record numbers, we will continue to win even bigger than before. But Democratic leader Chuck Schumer says the blame lay with the president.
I think it's pretty obvious that so many people in Virginia were upset with the way President Trump has tried to govern, has been unable to get anything done, has resorted to tweeting instead of leading. This was a rejection not only of President Trump, but of the policies that he and the
Gillespie should have been Trumpier. People who don't like the president are going to say that he was too Trumpy. And everybody is going to see in the result the outcome that reinforces their personal point of view.
Let me put it to you this way.
Hit me.
So look, he's former RNC chair, clearly part of the establishment.
George W. Bush.
Okay,
Yep.
Establishment. Okay, so he's running that dance.
Right.
But then at the very end, he realizes, I suppose, hey, not a bad idea to embrace some of the principles of the president because they share that in common. But, oh, by the way, don't come and help me. Who is this person in that moment? Are they establishment light? Are they? Because, see, voters have to figure that out on a rainy day if what he's saying is enough to get them to go out.
Let me tell you what I did. I went through and I looked at all the counties and I looked at all the regions of Virginia. Ed Gillespie did really, really well. He got out the vote in heavy Trump areas. He did better in non-Trump areas. He had, as a Republican candidate running in Virginia, he got out the vote among people who would be naturally. He did better in the Trumpiest parts of Virginia than his predecessor, Ken Cuccinelli, who is Trump de la Trump de la Trump. He did way better than him in key precincts where that's where you'd see the vote turning out. He also did better in the leafy, Democrat-leaning suburbs in the north. He did great. Guess what happened? The Democrats stomped him. You know why they stomped him? Because they turned out at huge numbers. The Republicans are focused on themselves and blaming, well, is it his fault or is it his fault? They should be looking over on the other side. The Democrats are fired up, they're ready to go, and they're turning out.
Well, what's the difference? What are they doing? I mean, I know they leaned hard on some cultural issues, and those maybe made a difference. Just curious what you learned from this, or if the RNC chairperson yesterday, Ronna McDaniel, is right, and these are so individual that you can't really say bellwether anywhere.
The Democratic intensity is high. Now, whether that's going to be the case a year from now when we have the midterm elections and control of the House and Senate is up for grabs, we don't know. We have no idea what it's going to look like. But I'm here to tell you, if you conducted a national election yesterday and we saw the results from Maine to Washington, the Democrats are ready to go vote in a way that the Republicans are not.
All right. We are going to talk more about this subject later in the hour, but I have to say these 2 words to see if they make a difference.
I'm ready. I'm braced.
Tax reform. Well, that didn't do it for you.
Well, look, all I'm saying, I think they're going to get. I absolutely believe that between now and the end of September, the Republicans are going to find a way to cut taxes on somebody.
But in terms of actually making a difference with some candidates, I mean, as a subject matter, as they go into 2018, if they get tax reform done, if they don't, what does that do?
Look, here's the catch-22 for Republicans. The economy's going great. Joblessness is low. The stock market's
catch
roaring.
100.
Right. Everything should be. People are happy. People are happy with the economy. General sentiment about how things are going, which is always the #1 issue, are good. But it's not transferring to the Republicans. And then the Republicans say, we want, even though you don't like us, we want you to give us this tax cut. If we get this tax cut, then the economy, instead of growing at 3.5%, will grow at 4.5%, and we will candy coat your unicorn. And for the voters at home, if they don't like the individual provisions in the tax cut, they don't see the need right now because the economy is growing.
I'm just wondering, when you have a state like Virginia that had cultural issues, Charlottesville, you've had some problems.
Oh, yeah.
Then it makes a lot of sense, I would think, as you turn, if you're going to do anything that Donald Trump is doing right now, you talk about money. You talk about the economy. You talk about changing lives with that and taking a page out of what is working in the United States and making it work in Virginia. I don't know. I'm not trying to write the guy's talking points. I'm just simply saying that it ought to be pretty obvious.
Well, you would win wherever you ran.
Well, you're sweet.
But we would.
My dad's going to call you.
But we would point this out. We would absolutely point this out. For Republicans, they have to accept the fact that the president's not broadly popular. He is, in fact, fact, broadly unpopular. But this is what always happens.
But not all over Virginia, though.
Not all over Virginia, but taken as a whole, he's rocking like a 35% approval rating. They don't like him taken as a whole as a state, and that's how the states vote. I'd just say this. Parties in power generally lose the first midterm, and they often lose the. This is how it goes. This is the price of poker. Donald Trump is a very special, different individual than we have ever had as president of the United States. But some of the old rules do apply.
All right, real quickly before I let you go. So then it becomes incumbent of this new president to actually do more than just talk about making deals with Democrats. He may have to actually get stuff done beyond 2018 with many of them. Should things change in many areas of the country? Your thoughts?
Oh, for sure. If the Republicans do poorly in midterms, you will watch Donald Trump do what Bill Clinton did, except in reverse. He will go, you know what, my dear friends across the aisle, let's make a deal. Let's do stuff.
On DACA, he's already starting it with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi.
But they don't want to help him because they want to see him fail, and they want to see the Republicans lose bigly in 2018.
All right. Chris Stirewalt. The Steyer's on fire. I watched you last night, too, as you were breaking things down. Thank you for coming in the day after.
Thanks for staying up.
Appreciate it. No, always. Fox News alert on this. President Trump has arrived in Beijing, and he's being greeted by Chinese President Xi Jinping. The North Korea threat expected to be the main focus there. Before headed to China, the president makes a big speech to South Korea's parliament, where he issued a new warning to North Korea. Watch.
Today, I hope I speak not only for our countries, but for all civilized nations. When I say to the North, do not underestimate us, and do not try us. We will defend our common security, our shared prosperity, and our sacred liberty.
A North Korean official told CNN they don't care what that, quote, mad dog may utter, end quote, and that they will counter those threats by bolstering the power of justice. Kevin Cork is live in Beijing with the latest. Kevin, good to see you.
Hey, nice to see you, Harris. You're right. By the way, another welcome for the president coming up at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 9 a.m. our time here in Beijing. And the first family will be greeted once again by President Xi Jinping. But clearly, that's going to lead to a full day of meetings. And as you pointed out, while trade may be a part of the day, this is really all about North Korea. And I want to share some pictures, just a bit of what we saw yesterday as I sort of explained the complexity of the circumstance on North Korea. Clearly, the president wants to make sure that they are not threatening our partners in the region. But for China, it's a tricky proposition. Understand that the last thing the Chinese government wants is a sort of South Korea-style unified Korea right on their border, so they have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo. That is, so long as North Korea doesn't continue to create an environment that ultimately, Harris, could lead to a hot war situation with the U.S. and Japan and South Korea. That could ultimately spill into China and maybe even involve Russia. In fact, the president took his warning, as you pointed out, to South Korea when he addressed the National Assembly there, and he didn't mince words in telling North Korea what he thought about what they've been up to.
The weapons you are acquiring are not making you safer. They are putting your regime in grave danger. Every step you take down this dark path increases the peril you face. North Korea is not the paradise your grandfather envisioned. It is a hell that no person deserves.
Don't forget, the two leaders will also have a joint statement issued. Now, it's not a joint statement as in they're going to say, this is what we believe together. They're going to make themselves available to issue a statement. They're not going to take questions. At least we're told they're not going to take questions, Harris. But we're talking about President Trump, so you just never know. If he does, we'll be there. We'll let you know what happens. But in the meantime, it should make for a very active and interesting day.
Definitely.
Back to you.
All right. And as a journalist, I know how much we love when he breaks from form and takes our questions. Thank you very much. For more, let's bring in Ambassador John Bolton, former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Fox News contributor, and senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Ambassador, good to see you today.
Glad to be with you.
Let's talk about North Korea and exactly where we are with the words that were spoken most recently last night by the president, and now this response from North Korea.
Well, I thought the president's speech was excellent, really Reagan-esque. I think he drew the contrast, which is important, especially in South Korea and for the American public. The contrast between life in hell in North Korea and in South Korea. He talked about the achievements the South Koreans had made and the darkness in North Korea, because that describes the regime too, and it describes the regime that is on the verge of getting deliverable nuclear weapons. So the president had to square the circle, in effect, by making clear to South Korea he would do what was necessary to protect the United States, but also to say we wanted to stay side by side with South Korea. I thought that part of the trip concluded fine. But look, this is the main event in Beijing, beginning with the meetings Thursday morning, their time, beginning tonight, our time, and a lot rides on how this comes out.
You know, the president last night, 30 miles from the demilitarized zone. And so that is an optic already that you've got as a backdrop, and then those Reagan-esque words, as you put it. But it's not perfect. So talk to me about maybe an area or two where you say, well, the president should have gone farther with this, or something that you would want to just change or bolster.
Well, I think he said something that he probably had to say in South Korea, which is North Korea could get out of the mess it's in by completely giving up its nuclear weapons program, and then we'd have a peaceful resolution. I think that's what the people in South Korea want to hear. I mean, ideally, it's what we all want to hear. But I think he knows, as we should all know, North Korea will never voluntarily give up its nuclear weapons program. There is no negotiation path. And I think that's the point he's got to make to Xi Jinping in these private meetings, that we can work together to eliminate the regime, eliminate the nuclear weapons, but we're not going to depart from what the president said back in September at the UN, that denuclearization of North Korea is the only way forward. And that is a tough conversation with Xi Jinping.
Yeah, you know, you break it down and you put it so simply, and yet it's so difficult, because the line has moved now. We were just talking about this in the last hour about Outnumbered with Stephen Hayes. You know, it used to be, the way the Obama administration and others looked at this, is no nuclearization was the end game. Right now, this president is saying, no, you got to put that in the front of before you do anything else.
Look, it was always a mistake to say that we can work with North Korea. North Korea is happy to commit to give up its nuclear weapons program. It's done it 4 times expressly in bilateral and multilateral agreements in the past 25 years, and it has lied about it every time. That's why those who say we should negotiate further have to look at 25 years of history. If you failed for 25 years, as Susan Rice admitted a few weeks ago, what piece of evidence is there that year 26 will give you a different result? The president, our president, is out of time. And unless you're content to see this bizarre regime with nuclear weapons, you're down to some very tough choices in a very short period.
How will we know how this speech was really received by North Korea? I know we got a little bit of a tidbit about some of that stuff they say they want to do to us, and they always say that, whatever. They'll say that whether we talk or not. But really, what measurement are we going to go by that there really is progress being made? You hear the president talk about some accomplishments. How do you see it?
Well, look, if I'm wrong and North Korea is looking for a way out, maybe they'll say something nice. They haven't done it so far. But I think, honestly, the North Koreans think that Trump is just like the past 3 American presidents. This is all rhetoric and bluster. They're just going to hunker down and bull their way through it. They've done that before. It's succeeded every time. The United States has never effectively stood up to them. And I think we've seen reports already. Russia has snuck in under the sanctions to help them out. I have no doubt that Iran is helping them out with banking and other transactions. So that's why I think you're not going to see much today. I'd be surprised if we did. I think they're going to wait and see what happens in Beijing. Xi Jinping is at the top of his game in terms of his authority in China. He can make a definitive statement, and so we'll see in 24 hours, I think. 2
terms. He's got 5 more years, Xi Jinping.
He's got as long as he wants, I think.
Yeah, right. Don't even measure it the way that they vote. Good to see you, Ambassador, as always. Thank you.
Thank you, Harris.
A year ago today, America democracy guaranteed Donald Trump would become the next president. Still, there were plenty of sour grapes and even near hysteria on the left side of the political aisle. Will the mainstream media, some of them, ever realize how out of touch they are with the rest of the nation? And as House Republicans continue marking up their tax plan as we speak, you can watch it live in some quarters. Their GOP colleagues in the Senate expected to release their own tax proposal tomorrow. I get teased because I watch a lot of C-SPAN. Will both sides be able to work together? And what does it mean for your bottom line, your pocketbook? Stu Varney from the Fox Business Network is next.
There are obviously some differences in the way that the Senate will approach some of the issues, but I think by and large what you're talking about is a bill that's pro-growth. I mean, we're looking for economic growth. We want to get greater growth in the economy, which creates better paying jobs, higher wages, more take-home pay for American workers.
New information on the GOP tax plan. The Congressional Budget Office says the bill would add $1.7 trillion to the national debt over the course of a decade. Meanwhile, House Republicans are defending their plan to rewrite the tax code after another analysis showed some middle-income earners would see tax increases under their current proposal. But White House Budget Chief Mick Mulvaney says the middle class has nothing to worry about.
This is how we look at it at the end. To your original point about are you worried about the fact that according to some groups, taxes might be raised on some groups? No, because if that turns out to be the case, if we really believe it, if our numbers show the same thing, that the taxes are going up in the middle class, we're not going to sign it. So that's an easy answer for us to give here at the White House.
Joining me now, Stu Varney, host of Varney and Company on the Fox Business Network, a man who knows his money and ours. So a couple things are happening right now. So they're marking up this bill. I watched some of it on closed-circuit satellite, and what I learned was if you have a big voice in that room, they'll spend lots of time on your particular state's issue. Okay. I don't know how much that fortifies the nation's tax code, but this is how it's done. And so we rejoice in the fact that they are talking at this point. But you say what?
Okay. I say this. This plan that we've got and we've heard from the House is not Reagan-esque. It's not like the Reagan tax cuts of the 1980s.
You feel you know enough about it to say that?
I know enough about the House plan, that's for sure. Now, the Senate may well try to change it. There are limits to how much they can change it. The essence of this plan is not Reagan-esque for the following reasons. Not everybody gets a tax cut. We were promised that. That will not be delivered.
Who gets left off the list?
People who are paying taxes already. The people who pay most of the tax currently, that's the top 1 to 10% of income earners, they will still be paying about the same amount or even more if this House version is passed.
You know, a lot of people in the country don't have sympathy for the 1 to 10%.
Oh, absolutely. They get no sympathy whatsoever. Tax the rich. That's the new mantra these days.
So is that enough to keep it from going forward?
No, it's not. But the problem with taxing the rich some more is that you don't get real solid economic growth if you do that. The reason is this. The top tax rate, as you know, is going to stay at 39.6%. No cut for that top level. None at all. 39.6%.
But they're losing some deductions, too.
Very important deductions.
Yeah.
State and local income taxes. They're gone.
Well, and if there's a cap on interest rate on your home loan, that's a loss, too.
There's a cap on the mortgage interest deduction on your home.
And that hurts that particular
cut in half,
too.
from $1 million to $500,000.
Right.
Upper income earners pay the price.
And again, you say those people you need, because some of them are small business owners,
yes.
but many of them, though, are as big as corporations. They're so wealthy. So again, I don't know that they get the kind of sympathy you're talking about.
Oh, they'll get no sympathy. No, but if you don't let those people take more of their own money,
so you say across the board,
don't grow the economy.
Everybody has to get a tax cut.
Well, to be a Reagan-esque, yes.
Okay.
That's what we went into this thing.
So
that's what President Trump promised. Every single taxpayer gets a tax cut.
Do you think he'll sign it? From what we know, do we know enough to know what he'll sign? I know he spent some time on the Senate side with Mitch McConnell talking about what he would sign.
He'll sign
I don't know how much you think he will.
He will sign it because something is better than nothing. And if the Republicans get nothing done, they are toast in next year's elections. So, yes, he will sign what comes to his desk, whether he likes it or not.
All right. The other issue that's going on now, so we have a lot of emails right now from our producer, Chad Pergram, telling us exactly how this is supposed to go down tomorrow. So we're going to get the final markup because the House says they're going to stay up through the night doing this. Okay. And then the Senate will roll out their own version of a bill. That is a little different than what what I thought we were going to see. I thought we were going to see the House go to the Senate, and then the Senate would mark up their bill. This is a little different. So we'll get to see what the senators want.
Yes, we will.
What if it's not even close?
But there's a limit to how much you can change. There's a limit to how many changes the Senate can impose on the House version, because they've got to make sure that the tax cut is no more than $1.5 trillion over a 10-year period.
So is that why they want to put their own plan out?
I have no idea why they want to do that.
Because if you do that, then the House also gets to see what you have in your hand.
We're hearing some very unfortunate things coming out of the Senate.
You don't like this.
No, I don't. I really don't.
Why not?
Because I want a Reagan-esque tax cut that restores America to growth and prosperity. This plan that's coming out of the House does not do that. As long as you have the people who pay taxes now paying more, even more in the future, you don't stimulate the economy like you could have if you're getting tax cuts across the board.
I know you say you think the president will sign this anyway, but, you know, he goes his own road. So if he looks at this and decides, no, I'm not unless it's across the board. No, I'm not unless these certain things are happening. He could do that.
He could do that. I don't think he will, because it would really, really hurt the Republican Party.
Okay, real quickly, corporate tax, where are you with it?
It's supposed to go down immediately to a top rate of 20%. We're hearing the very disquieting report in the Washington Post this morning that the Senate might delay that for a year. That would not be good news for American corporations and not good news for the stock market.
Yeah, $1.7 trillion is what it would cost in terms of deficit, is the new number we're getting. CBO score. Not everybody lives or dies by that.
You can do the math
so we'll have to see how that shakes out. Stu Varney, they don't know it, but we've been here more than a decade, and this was TV history. You and I have never been on TV together.
Ain't that cute?
Oh, I'm grateful, sir. Thank you.
Oh,
this was fun.
Thank you.
Tomorrow, we are going overtime, OT baby, in D.C. I'll be in our nation's capital on the same day GOP senators could roll out their tax plan. We'll be talking with Republican lawmakers about the chances of actually getting legislation to the president's desk by the end of the year. Also in the House, Kellyanne Conway, counselor to the president, will stop on by. We look forward to that. Hope you'll pop your corn and watch at 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, Outnumbered Overtime. Vice President Mike Pence travels to Texas today to mourn with a community torn apart by the Sunday church massacre. That visit comes as we're learning more about the killer's past, including his prior escape from a psychiatric hospital. Also, while in Beijing, how can President Trump convince China's leader to become a critical partner in dealing with North Korea? We talked a little bit with the ambassador. My next guest will go in depth. Stay close.
The world cannot tolerate the menace of a rogue regime that threatens with nuclear devastation. All responsible nations must join forces to isolate the brutal regime of North Korea.
Vice President Mike Pence is now en route to Texas, where he'll meet with the victims and survivors of the church massacre. The Texas Department of Public Safety has released the names of all 26 people killed in Sunday, the Sutherland Springs massacre. This as new details keep surfacing about the suspected gunman, including how he managed to escape from a psychiatric hospital a few years ago after threatening the staff. Adam Housley is live in Texas. Adam?
Yeah, that escape, we find out, was in 2012, the same year he was convicted and served time for beating up his ex-wife and at the same time cracking the skull of his stepson, who was a young infant at the time. Also, Harris, we've got some new video into us about the end of the chase that took place from the church here about 10 miles away, where the shooter eventually took his own life after he'd been shot twice by Stephen Williford. The video was taken by Johnny Langendorf. You might remember he was the man driving through town here, and Stephen Williford, without shoes and with a rifle, flagged him down, jumped in his truck, and they chased the gunman down the street for 10 miles. The video shows that standoff at the end. You can see the gun drawn with Stephen Williford in the gray shirt in the distance. Shows you the dramatic end to the gunman's life, or at least that's where it ended off, and that's where authorities would eventually determine that he was dead. Back here live, the investigation continues and continue for some time here, and several other locations in South Texas. Behind me is the church. The front door is now open as investigators have gone inside. There's a lot of work to be done here. They still say that they've got a lot of stuff to be gathered. Meantime, inside that church, we're hearing more stories of heroism, including from Joanne Ward. She was the mother who threw her body across her own children. 2 of them would die with her. 2 of them would survive. Take a listen to the family spokesperson.
She said, I would die for my children. And she ended up having to do that in the very end. And that does not surprise any of us in this community that knows her, because she loved them so. And she gave it up for them, ultimately.
She did, unfortunately, and there's just so many people in this town, Harris. You can't go to the store, and this town is smaller than a small town. It's a postage stamp, basically, just a group of houses in an unincorporated area. But you can't go anywhere and not meet someone who doesn't know multiple people that were here at that church. I was talking to a lady at a gas station down the street. She was sweeping the front, and the bullets were whizzing by her, and as she drove by, she saw one of her friends running out, yelling, "Everybody inside's dead." I mean, this is what people are dealing with here. The vice president will come here, as we know today, to meet with families, to pray with families. That meeting, we're told, will not be near here. He will not come to this site. At least that's the plan for now. It'll be at a church about 10 miles down the road. Harris.
Our prayers continue to be with that area. All those people across the nation, we pray for them. Thank you very much, Adam. President Trump is in Beijing, and he's ramping up pressure on China to do more to keep North Korea in check. During his speech in South Korea last night, the president urged all responsible nations to join forces and isolate the North. Watch.
We call on every nation, including China and Russia, to fully implement UN Security Council resolutions, downgrade diplomatic relations with the regime, and sever all ties of trade and technology. It is our responsibility and our duty to confront this danger together, because the longer we wait, the greater the danger grows and the fewer the options become.
Rebecca Heinrichs is a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute. Rebecca, thank you for being with us today. We are now at a hinge point on this trip because the president has already met with South Korea, the Japanese. He's now meeting, he's in China. He's meeting with a man who has an incredible amount of power right now leading China. Your thoughts?
Yeah, China is really the deal breaker here, the one that has the power and the ability to make this pressure campaign that President Trump and the United States is leading with our partners. And that's because China conducts 90% of North Korea's trade is with China. China has the ability to finally squeeze Kim to force him to do what President Trump said yesterday in Seoul, and that's to give up his nuclear missile program. And so without China's help, it simply can't be done, and that's the hard truth.
You know, what's on the table for China? I mean, they have to be looking at this and saying, okay, what are they risking and what do they want? What do we know about that?
Well, you know, the Chinese have liked the fact that they've appreciated the fact that Kim has sort of been a distraction. He's been provocative. He's kept the United States on our heels a little bit in the region, because the Chinese do not want a unified Korea, which is what the United States does want eventually one day. Even though Rex Tillerson's been clear, we don't want regime change now with North Korea. That's not what we're after. We just want Kim having these close, tight relationships with the Japanese and South Korea. So they've liked that a little bit there. But Kim has really pushed it beyond what the Chinese have been able to tolerate. And so the Chinese at this point, if they want good trade relations with the United States, if they don't want war on the Korean Peninsula, which nobody does, they've got to take President Trump seriously. And they really have to get on board with this plan to finally push Kim to his knees to get him to stop these provocations.
You know, I want to tell our audience, you were an advisor on military matters, foreign policy for a member of the House Armed Services Committee, Representative Trent Franks, for many years. And, I lean on that part of your expertise when I say, what do we really talk about giving China? Because it's got to come down to something more than just taking away, or does it?
Well, no, I mean, we can have, again, we've got this trade deal. President Trump has been very clear, wants to have good relations with China. He wants a good trade relationship. But the big thing, there's two big things. Obviously, the trade aspect, not wanting military force being used on the Korean Peninsula. It also doesn't want a stronger, more militarized Japan. And Japan, Abe of Japan has a great relationship with President Trump. There's a lot of solidarity there. And Abe has been looking at what are the options that Japan needs if we don't get a handle on North Korea, and if China isn't going to be, more of a ball player here with the United States and our allies in the region. China doesn't want that. So we've got a combination of carrots and sticks here, but really it's going to be up to the Chinese in terms of what future it wants with the United States and with the U.S. allies in the region. You know, when you look at somebody like the leader of North Korea, you know that you're probably going to always have to be more stick than carrot. But from what we know about China and all the things you just enumerated, it seems like we have some places to go, and it speaks to the change in tone that we've seen from President Trump. That toughness and then now more of a carrot on this trip. Talk to me, if you will, Rebecca, just on how we move forward in all of this. What kinds of things the president needs to say in his speech? Well, you know, rhetoric does matter. Despite what you might hear from some national security people out here who sort of brush off Trump's his strong rhetoric, it's very important. The difference between some of what he says and President Obama is not even necessarily in the content. President Obama even said all options are on the table in dealing with North Korea. The difference is President Trump is believable. There's something about him that communicates resolve and determination. And so not only does he have to convince Kim that he is serious, that if given the choice between allowing American cities to be held hostage to a nuclear missile from North Korea or using military force, he's going with the latter. He also has to convince China that he's willing to do that as well. Yeah. And so, you know, it's the resolve, it's the determination, it's the clarity, and President Trump provides that. Well, and just a couple of recent examples. As you were talking, they popped into my head as the visuals of what you're saying, the Tomahawk missiles that we sent into Syria after chemical weapons were used there on citizens. And then just the most recent taking out of the Raqqa, Syria area, the ISIS, those thirsty terrorists, too, and knocking out their nesting hole there, the caliphate that they were trying to build there. I mean, it isn't just the rhetoric, it's also the action. Your last word. Absolutely. I mean, flying these nuclear-capable bombers so far north of the DMZ, it's, you know, it's again like it's prosecuting this war against ISIS with strong resolve and determination. This is a guy who means it, and he's not backing down on these military exercises with South Korea and Japan. Even though North Korea and China want us to stop doing that, he has absolutely said, absolutely not. We're not going to be deterred. We're not going to be intimidated. We're here, and North Korea better make a decision. But the choice is Kim Jong-un's. Rebecca Heinrichs, we appreciate your time today. Thank you very much. Thanks. Fox News has learned that the co-founder of Fusion GPS, the firm behind that unverified Trump dossier, met with a Russian lawyer right before and after that same attorney met with Donald Trump Jr. Now some are asking or suggesting this may have been part of a plot to frame Team Trump. The Power Panel weighs in next.